Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Hello! How are you doing this afternoon, my friend?
Well, I would say it's more of an evening when we're recording, but I would say that I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm full and bloated. Slightly uncomfortable.
Had a nice dinner then?
Yeah, I had a little dinner, had a couple brewskis. My pants are a little too small, so I had to unbutton them to record this thing. They were constricting
you want to maximize your comfort level while you're recording so that you can get in the zone, you know?
We never know when it's going to breach the 4-hour mark, you know, so I need to definitely make sure I'm comfortable.
Well, here's hoping that it doesn't reach that plateau this time around, but I myself am sipping on some fancy wine, so never say never. I've got some Walla Walla red wine produced and bottled by Knocking Point Wines. So this is my secret stash that I like to keep on hand for special occasions, and I just felt like drinking some wine, and I have too many of these bottles sitting around, and it's time to crack one of them open, so that's where I'm at with my life.
Very nice.
So this week we are covering Deadpool 2, which graced theaters this past Friday. It's done pretty well for itself over the weekend. We'll talk about it shortly. Do you have a fun fact you'd like to share, possibly Deadpool related?
I do have some Deadpool related fun facts.
Oh.
They aren't about the second one. They're more about the first one. But when the first one came out, it did set a couple of box office records, and I know you like your box office numbers.
You know me too well.
But this was the highest worldwide grossing rated R film.
But not domestically.
Not domestically. Domestically, it was topped only by that of The Passion of the Christ.
They do love Jesus around these parts, don't they?
They do. But not so much around the world. Deadpool took it around the world. And it is also the highest grossing X-Men film series, or highest grossing X-Man movie, but it's not really an X-Man, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, it certainly takes place within that Fox X-Men universe that they've crafted and have kind of just, I don't know, I mean, the timelines are very inconsistent within that own world, so Deadpool, I think, fits right in as far as just saying, hey, whatever, it's part of the universe, doesn't really matter. No, but it's fine.
Which is, the box office numbers that the first movie put out are ridiculous, especially when you compare it to the budget that it had. I think it had like a budget of $50 million.
Yeah, it was pretty low, definitely, in the scheme of things. Obviously, $50 million isn't chump change to anyone, but in the scheme of things, as far as Hollywood productions go, that's very, very low, definitely on the low side.
I was looking at some other statistics. It's actually like the 5th lowest superhero movie budget.
Which I would have to imagine, if that includes the likes of like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher and stuff like that, then, you know, that came out, God, what, 30 years ago, something like that?
I don't think it included that. I mean, I didn't get a whole lot of look at it. I could go back, though. Let's see.
Well, even still, I mean, I'd have to imagine a lot of your early 2000s. I mean, maybe your Blades are the only ones I could think of, maybe a little bit more recently, but even then, you're still looking at late 90s, early 2000s.
Let's see. There it is. It included Kick-Ass, which had a budget of $30 million.
Okay.
Batman from 89, which had a budget of $35 million. Blade from 98. 40 million. Elektra, which had a budget of 43 million, and then right there was Deadpool.
Yeah, Elektra, never heard of it.
But then you get over the according to this thing that I'm looking at, Man of Steel had the highest budget at $225 million. So I imagine it's an outdated list.
Yeah. I mean, I know at least for a fact that both Justice League and Infinity War were around the $300 million threshold, if not more. Certainly in the case of Infinity War, which at least, you know, again, not to beat a dead horse, but at least it made its money back, unlike something else that I'm talking about. So, yeah, very good. Yeah. I think we might have a little bit more box office things to talk about a little bit later this episode. Just a little tease of what's to come. But before we get there, I did want to talk about some news that we had come across our desk this past week. A few good things mixed in here. Some trailers I think that we'll have a little bit to say on, and some other pieces of news that I'm quite excited to talk about as well. So we'll begin in the world of Marvel Studios, which has interestingly enough tapped tapped a couple writers to work on one of the projects that we might be expecting for Phase 4 as we move into a post-Avengers 4 world after May of next year. So this project is called The Eternals, and it looks like it's kind of moving ahead. They've got Matthew and Ryan Firpo set to write it. They haven't really worked on anything other than a spec script called Ruin that was part of the 2017 Blacklist, which is kind of this big kind of famous list of scripts in Hollywood that get unproduced. Sometimes they get turned into movies, years down the line, but usually it means that they're good, but for one reason or another, it just wasn't able to come into fruition as an actual project, as an actual film. So it's a pretty interesting direction, I would think, to take for a movie. So the Eternals, I am not overly familiar with them. I kind of feel like a general rule of thumb is if I'm not super familiar with the comics thing, you probably aren't either. Is that accurate here?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about.
Okay, so per the Hollywood Reporter article, which I'll cite here, in comics lore, the saga of the Eternals began millions of years ago when the cosmic beings known as the Celestials, which we have seen in the MCU in Guardians of the Galaxy. There's like a little brief shot of a Celestial using the Power Stone, and the location Nowhere is called the severed head of an ancient Celestial. So we've seen the Celestials, but basically those big fuckers, they genetically experimented on humans, creating the superpowered and near immortal beings in a more monstrous offshoot known as the Deviants. And then these two races moved behind the scenes throughout human history while also engaging in quote-unquote Game of Thrones style cosmic power plays. So some characters described here in the article are Icarus, fueled by cosmic energy, Circe, who relishes moving amongst humans, and Athena, often mistaken for the Greek goddess Athena. Created in 1976 by the great Jack Kirby. It says it's influenced by works such as Chariots of the Gods, which explored ancient gods and aliens. So, I mean, there's some cool sounding shit here, but it's something that I don't really know a whole lot about. But I'm kind of curious to see if that's the thread that Marvel's pulling on. Then I would be very, very keen to see what they have in store for us.
Yeah, it sounds pretty crazy.
A little wild, indeed. So we'll keep track of that. So we got a couple trailers, as I mentioned, that I wanted to talk about on the film side of things. First of which is the Queen movie, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
So it's a teaser trailer here, I guess I should specify. So there's a lot of footage here. It's all kind of, played to the tune of a few Queen tracks. And I feel like that's a pretty good formula right there, is show some nice-looking footage, some well-shot footage to the tune of some awesome Queen music. I liked this teaser trailer, I will say. It's got Rami Malek, Mr. Robot, Elliot Anderson playing Freddie Mercury here, which there's times in this where I'm like, oh yeah, that looks great. And then there's times that I'm like, oh, that looks not good at all in terms of kind of his look as Freddie Mercury, which I think Sacha Baron Cohen was actually attached to this project for the longest time, and he looks way more similar to Freddie Mercury, but he basically bailed on the project because the remaining members of Queen were like, yeah, we don't actually want it to be just about Freddie. We want like the first half of the movie to be about Freddie's life, and then the second half is going to be about Queen putting the pieces back together after Freddie's death. And he was like, yeah, no one cares about that side of the story, dude. Which is a harsh thing to say, but it was clearly a big enough creative difference, the quote unquote creative difference for him to balk and leave the project. And this project in its current iteration has obviously had some issues of its own. Had Bryan Singer attached to direct it. I believe he did direct part of it, and then he was, I don't know, he said that he took a weekend off, or I don't know, he said, she said type thing, but Bryan Singer was obviously caught up in a lot of the Me Too stuff.
Right.
And he is no longer part of this project. He was replaced by Dexter Fletcher as the director of this. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think that from what I can tell, I think I like this. I think this looks good. I did see something about it, how it's not going to touch on Freddie Mercury's struggle with AIDS, which seems like kind of a big oversight. So I'm wondering if maybe the final product is going to be kind of why, Sacha Baron Cohen left the project, is because he's like, look, that's not the story that needs to be told. Like that's not the story, So We'll see, obviously, when this does come out. But
right.
Okay, so okay, I feel like I've been hogging the mic a little bit. So in terms of what you saw in the trailer, what did you think? And then in terms of everything else,
I thought it was a well-crafted trailer.
Okay.
I thought it was well edited. I enjoyed it. I agree with you though. There's times where you're like, holy shit, that looks really close to Freddie Mercury, and then there's other times like, oh, what are they thinking?
It looks like Rami Malek going on a Halloween costume, the little cosplay action.
Yeah, it does not look flattering.
I think he looks better with the stash. I think maybe that's what it is. The stash, I think, helps a little bit. Otherwise, he just
needs to keep the glasses on.
Maybe
he has the he puts those big aviators on and stuff with the mustache. It looks pretty good.
So as long as he obscures most of his face, then he looks just like Freddie Mercury. That's what you're saying.
Just keep the cheeks and the mustache. But yeah, like I said, I think it was well edited. I mean, there's a little bit there, but if it doesn't touch on those big life experiences there that kind of make and break what happened, I don't know how you tell the story. And I'm not a music connoisseur. I don't know everything about Queen, but I do know, that he did struggle with AIDS, and it just seems like a large part of the story. So, I didn't know they weren't not going to go in that direction. It's kind of baffling.
Well, but, I can't cite that right offhand, but I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. So if it turns out to be not true, then great. I think the movie would be better for having included that part of the story. So I would like to be wrong and just be misquoting or misremembering or something like that. So if that ends up being the case, then I will retract that. But
yeah, we'll see what happens, though.
We'll just have to wait and see what happens on November 2nd when it comes out. Second trailer that I wanted to talk about is the second trailer that we've received for Mission Impossible Fallout, coming later this year, July 26th.
I'm pumped.
Yeah, man. Cruise missile, fucking Henry Cavill with his mustache, Simon Pegg coming back, Rebecca Ferguson coming back, Ving Rhames coming back. Like, oh, man.
Henry Cavill's a massive fucking dude. He is a big dude.
He's a large man, yes.
I would not want to be fighting that guy. It's an intimidating sight.
Agreed.
But
agreed.
I another thing. I was watching. What's the BBC show? I always forget the name of it. It's like a talk show where the group of stars go and they sit and they
Graham Norton.
Yes, I watch a lot of that show.
Yeah, that's great.
Just little tidbits here and there, but Tom Cruise was on it, and they replayed the clip of him jumping from the building, and you can see his ankle snap or his leg breaking as he hits the building. And he, I encourage you to watch that the Graham Norton clip of that because that was pretty entertaining. But yeah, man, it looks like an action-packed mission. It looks like a Mission Impossible movie. I can't think of a Mission Impossible movie that's ever came out that I wasn't excited for. So.
Well, I can't disagree with you in that statement because I feel like my excitement levels for like Mission Impossible 1 came out when I was probably 4 or 5, and then the second one came out when I was like 8 or 9. So I don't know that I was excited per se for those, but I can say
not for them to come out, but when you saw it on TV or whenever you first caught it, you were excited.
I would say certainly 3 on, because that's kind of the era in which I can definitively say that I was of the age to kind of recognize these movies as like a good franchise and, be excited for them. Mission Impossible 3 was 2006, so it would have been probably 14 or so when that one came out. And then Ghost Protocol, I think we had a big group of us go and see that in the IMAX Dome of all things.
Oh God, that was terrible.
Which was a bad experience for watching it. We did it for the Dark Knight. I guess it would have been the Dark Knight Rises prologue with the Bane on the airplane sequence.
Yeah,
and it was a miserable viewing experience, but it was a great movie.
Yeah, it was cool.
And then Rogue Nation a few years back was fucking excellent as well. So interestingly enough, this is the first time that a director is returning to the franchise. Say the first 5 entries were all separate directors, and then Chris McQuarrie, who did Rogue Nation, the most recent entry, is coming back to do this one. Rogue Nation very well could be my favorite in the franchise. I might have to revisit them all to make that definitive determination. But
maybe we can do that in a bonus Mission Impossible bonus thing. Bonus episode.
I choose to accept that mission.
We could totally. You better. Everybody take off their headphones. This recording's going to explode.
Probably not. But we can move on to the next thing, which is, of course, some casting news for It Chapter 2, to go with some recent casting news that we've had. So to recap what has happened, James McAvoy, Bill Hader, Jessica Chastain have all joined the cast as the adult versions of Bill, Richie, and Beverly, respectively. And a couple more additions. I would say some lesser-known actors, or at least actors that I personally didn't really recognize. James Ransone is going to be playing the adult version of Eddie in It Chapter 2, and Andy Bean is going to be playing the older version of Stanley in the movie. So I had a look at some pictures of these guys, and they look like dead ringers for adult versions of these characters. So I'd say, at least from a looks standpoint, they've knocked it out of the park here. So I'm excited to see this cast coming together. I wish I had a little bit more input as far as, kind of the acting capabilities, but based on the talent they've assembled so far, one thinks that they kind of have their shit together. So
yeah, first one was awesome. I'm excited to see the second half.
Very excited. Very excited indeed. And we'll keep tracking it as it comes along. Another trailer, one that actually came out the day that we're recording this, is for another adaptation of The Jungle Book, another live-action adaptation at that. This one's called Mowgli. It's actually going to be directed by Andy Serkis, and it stars Christian Bale, Cate Blanchett, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Frida Pinto. And Andy Serkis, he's in it, of course. Some mocap action going on here. Lots of mocap action going on here. So Andy Serkis himself is getting in on the fun. And it's interesting. This thing has actually been gestating for a long time, because it's weird that Hollywood has the certain times where they have two separate movies going on from two separate studios of basically the same principal concept. The first one I can think of is, I think, Mirror Mirror and Snow White and the Huntsman came out in the same year, and they were both obviously kind of interpretations of the Snow White story. They were very different, admittedly, but it was kind of just seriously, do we need two of these? That said, I thought that this one looked good, but I am kind of in this camp of, okay, we did just see this, right? Yeah.
I'm curious how that... Does Disney not own the properties of The Jungle Book?
No, I don't think so. So my understanding, and just from what I've seen that Andy Serkis has been saying about this, is that this is a more direct adaptation of the original Rudyard Kipling book. So it's a little bit more serious, no songs or anything like that. So it's a bit of a darker, I guess more straight adaptation type thing that we're looking at with this movie here.
Okay, that's cool.
So it's obviously intending to be a bit of a different spin. I don't think they're trying to ride the coattails of the Disney movie or anything like that. Like I said, this one's been going on. I think they started filming in 2015, so I feel like that should tell you that it's been in the works for a good while, but it's obviously a very VFX heavy movie, and I think that that's been a lot of the reason for the delays, is trying to work the kinks out there. There was bits in this trailer that I thought looked off, visually speaking, and some of it looked great, but it's something that doesn't come out, I don't think, for another few months, so they obviously have some time to work on it a little bit more. And it is one of those things, it's hard because animals' mouths don't actually work like that in real life, so trying to kind of animate voice movements and stuff like that and kind of sync it up with facial movements for animals, it's not like you have an actual real life comparison to really completely draw from, so you kind of have to just make it happen and hope that it works on screen.
I hope, anyways. I mean, Andy Serkis is quite the resume with this shit, but
sure.
But I'm with you, because the art style, there's a lot to be said about the art style of the animals. And I'm hoping, just from what I saw, because and all the performances are probably going to be top notch, just because they're well-renowned actors and actresses and such. But I hope it's almost like what was it? What was that movie we saw in Ready Player One, where you get caught up in the art style once you kind of acclimate to it, and then you don't really recognize it. I mean, if it's really bad, then then it's going to detract from the experience. But I think once, within the first 10 minutes, if you're surrounded by it and everything else, I think you probably won't recognize it once you get used to that art style.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that. Like I said, I just found it inconsistent within the own trailer itself. Like, I thought there was moments where I'm like, oh, this looks great. And then there's a few moments, I think there was one of the moments where one of the wolves was talking, and I'm like, oh, this looks not great.
It looks weird. It just looks, it's off-putting. It's kind of strange.
Right.
The tiger was that for me. I thought the tiger looked kind of weird.
Had kind of a squarish face that kind of, I feel like, didn't really help either.
Right. But then, you look at the snake. I mean, just about all the animals had a very distinct art style to their face. So like I said, I think it might be an art direction.
Right. That's fair.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I do. Mowgli, I think is going to be a good performer though. I don't know what that kid's.
He's so lifelike looking.
Yeah.
How did they make that happen?
They did a good job with him. I do like I do kind of like the tone though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Jungle Book's it's always been, I don't know a lot. I don't know anything about the book. But I do know just like they wrapped I always felt that they wrapped a kid's story up in a heartwarming thing, but it was never, the Disney Jungle Book never felt like a heartwarming thing. You know what I mean? I just always kind of felt like there's more there that could be spun differently. With the kid living in the woods with all these animals and stuff, and what that kid goes through. So I don't know. I really like the Jungle Book from the Disney stuff, but I'm excited to see it do a different direction, even though we just had one come out. Wasn't the biggest fan of the last one. So we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Comes out in October, so like I said, a few months away, and maybe we'll take a deeper look at it when it does come out. We shall see if it fits into our schedule. Last bit of movie news, quite exciting news, I would say. Jake Gyllenhaal has been eyed for a villain role in the upcoming sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, in which he would play Mysterio.
Rey Mysterio, like the wrestler?
No, not Rey Mysterio, just Mysterio.
Oh. Is that the fishbowl guy?
That's the fishbowl guy.
Oh, fuck yeah, he's cool.
Yeah,
I'll take it. And Jake Gyllenhaal's cool too. I'll take that too.
Yeah, for me, it's two things that I like coming together. So I cannot be upset at this news. So he's just in talks. So worth mentioning that he hasn't been confirmed for it. I guess he hasn't signed on the dotted line just yet. But hell of an actor. And Mysterio has been at the top of my list, I would say, or at least close to the top of my list of villains that I would like to see in a Spider-Man film. So I'm very excited to hear that he'd be joining this. My hope, I've always kind of hoped that if they did do Mysterio in an MCU Spider-Man, that they would get Doctor Strange in on it as well. I feel like those two characters kind of work together, where maybe Spider-Man thinks that Mysterio is just doing legit magic, even if maybe he's not, and then Doctor Strange is kind of just like, yeah, that's not magic, kid,
Well, that's not gonna... Oh.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they're making a Spider-Man sequel, so...
All right, this is true. What if they take Spider-Man in a different direction? What if Peter Parker's actually dead, and they bring, what's the new Spider-Man's name in? Morales?
Yeah, I mean, they could do that. They're not, but they could do that.
They could do also, right? Well, you would know. I guess the casting's probably already done for these movies, right?
I mean, they're still working on it, obviously, but this article does specifically mention that Tom Holland is returning to play Peter Parker, so I feel like that one, that kind of seals the deal right there. Zendaya, Marissa Tomei coming back. Interestingly enough, Michael Keaton also coming back to reprise his role as the Vulture.
Cool deal, man.
Sinister Six action, maybe, or maybe it's just a bit role. We'll see. John Watts, same director as Homecoming, is coming back to do this one. Kevin Feige, cool. Amy Pascal producing, so it's a lot of the same pieces as Homecoming, which I loved. So I'm very excited to see how this shapes up. So with that, we can move into some TV news, some of which is fucking incredible. Mostly just this first one is fucking incredible. I wish I could make this up. Epix has ordered a television series based on a DC Comics property. It's actually somewhat based on the DC Comics property of Batman, which, I was
that's
like, okay,
cool. Yeah.
Batman series, all right, I'm down with that. Now, hold your horses. This is a 10-episode straight-to-series order for a show called Pennyworth.
What?
It's going to revolve around Alfred Pennyworth, the best friend and butler to Bruce Wayne. And
Bruce Wayne's gonna be a little kid in this
I know
too?
you're already just thrilled about this whole project here, but I'm going to get you even more excited. It's going to be show ran by Gotham showrunner Bruno Heller.
Fuck. Oh man, is there a market for this much Batman prequel content? Is there? That's baffling. I don't understand. I'm so confused. What the fuck? We could do something with Batman, but no, we don't want to do anything with Batman. We want to
do everything with Batman except for Batman. No Batman is allowed. We're not allowed to use Batman. He's too, Ben Affleck is too busy not doing his own Batman movie for us to use Batman in other mediums. At least we got Batman Ninja, I suppose. There's that.
Jesus.
So it's not a Gotham spinoff. It said it's the same showrunner, but it is not related to the Gotham show. So we'll be looking at a whole new actor to explore the origins of Alfred as a former British SAS soldier who forms a secret company and goes to work with Thomas Wayne in the 1960s in London.
Oh man.
Now, I've got to say that I don't have Epix. I'm pretty sure it's not part of my cable package. And by the time this comes out, I'm not sure what cable package I'll have.
You're going to sign up for it now, aren't you?
But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't mildly intrigued by just the absolute preposterous nature of this entire project. So, yeah, I might give it a look at some point. Who's to say?
I wonder who they're going to cast as Pennyworth.
Yeah, maybe that's the make or break line is, they put someone in there that's fucking awesome. Well, he's probably a young Alfred, to be fair, so you probably have a young, handsome guy.
I fully expect Alfred to look like, what was the dude's name with the bowler hat in the original Captain America?
Dum Dum Dugan?
Dum Dum Dugan.
Yeah,
I want a Dum Dum Dugan Pennyworth.
Hey man, if they got Neil McDonough in this shit, I would be very on board with that. To be fair, he's already kind of technically been playing a DC character in Damien Dark on the CW verse, but this is probably separate from that. So yeah, that could happen.
Put a handlebar mustache on it, and they won't recognize him. But
I would be okay with that. But
they have Cable. He's already playing a purple guy.
It's true.
So
it's true.
Yeah, what else do we got in TV news, man? We're off to a good start here.
I don't know if we can quite top it. We'll see. I'm working on it. This is unconfirmed, but it comes from a somewhat reliable source, the OneRing.net. It's a pretty big Lord of the Rings fan site. So this isn't coming from the major trades that we usually pull our sources from, but there's basically speculation / reports from multiple sources that the upcoming Amazon Lord of the Rings series that they spent $6,000 billion on is going to center around a young Aragorn.
The Ranger. That's cool.
So, yeah, my understanding is that it would be in the film universe, I think. It would just kind of take place, obviously, kind of before, he looks like Viggo Mortensen, I guess, and it's going to take place, or it's not going to be a retelling, rather, of the events of the War of the Ring, so it's kind of pull from a lot of the material from the appendices and kind of stretch throughout the various times and histories of the events that take place throughout Middle-earth.
I'd have appreciated a distant prequel. If that's what this is going to do, I guess that's cool. But if it's centered around a young Aragorn, I feel like that time span isn't as far as I don't know. I would have liked it to go way back.
Yeah, I feel like that would be cool. But I also say that as someone that is not overly well versed in kind of the mythos of this world, so I don't really know exactly. There's no specific time period that I could point to and be like, oh my god, this is such right material. I think I'm kind of just jumping to the most obvious fantasy comparison that I have, a reference point. You think about Game of Thrones, and Robert's Rebellion is fuck, you could make another 10 seasons of Game of Thrones about fucking Robert's Rebellion,
or vice versa, or not vice versa, but the other argument is you go further back and you go to where the first men came to Westeros.
Yeah, or we could go to kind of the early lineage of the Targaryens or something like that, where you could do all sorts of stuff. Yeah, with maybe with the dragons and stuff like that.
But it's if they spent that much money on the series, it almost, I'm sure it helps that you're centering around an established character.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
bring in that market that is already established because you want to recoup some of that fucking money.
Sure. So it makes sense to center a series around an existing character, I think. So It's Lord of the Rings, man. I'll be all over it.
I agree. I will sit down and watch pretty much anything that they put in front of me, unless it's shit. But I'll still probably give it at least a season before I, bail on it. I've watched a lot of shit in my day. Believe me. Next thing I have on the board is something that's also not a trade that I usually look to for my news, but it's something that lines up, and there's things that there's been a couple other sources that have corroborated this, and that is that Bullseye will be one of the main villains of Daredevil season 3, and he will be portrayed by Wilson Bethel, who...
Oh, dude! Is that the dude that played in the OC?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I know you're such a big fan of the OC.
Holy shit! I would have never... That's awesome, dude. Wilson's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Well, I know
about
you're
it.
also. I mean, I don't want to make the obvious, thing even more obvious for you, but he was also in Heart of Dixie, which is another one of your favorites.
Yeah, that's right. He wasn't he?
Mm-hmm, yeah, he's a big character in that.
I don't know who the hell this guy is.
Yeah, this is really the only context I have for him, other than looking at his IMDb page to make jokes about. But I think we did actually mention his name in passing, or at least I mentioned his name in passing. We talked about some casting that came about for Daredevil season 3 many episodes ago, and how there was going to be like the FBI very heavily involved in it, and he had already been cast at that point as an FBI agent. And there was speculation that he was going to be playing Sin Eater, another kind of comic book villain, another Marvel villain, but it appears that that is not the case at all. So I think it might be a slightly different spin on the Bullseye character, unless the whole thing about him being an FBI agent is just a kind of charade to obscure who he's actually playing. But there's a few different comic book iterations of Bullseye. There's the 616 universe, which is just kind of the regular one. And then there's the Punisher Max one, which was a little bit maybe closer to what we might be getting here. So,
what was that one all about?
He was a marksman, deadly hand-to-hand combatant. His name was Sheldon Pendergrass. I think the comparison they're making is that the character sheet that they had for the season 3 villain was called Steve, so they're thinking maybe it's sort of close, so maybe that's the connection they're making. There's nothing strictly that ties him to any real interpretation, but said there's this source from the hashtag show, which is where I'm citing for this article, and then there was something on Reddit that came from is somewhat still of a dubious source, but it's someone that has had information on previous Netflix shows that have all turned out to be completely true, and he reported it before any trailers or the shows that dropped or anything like that. So I think that this is definitely going to be the case. So I don't expect to see him in full comic book gear, but sounds like he's still going to be Bullseye, and Bullseye is a fucking excellent villain, so I greatly look forward to that. Team him up with Wilson Fisk, who we already know is going to be in the season. It's going to be some sort of spin on Born Again, so it all makes sense. It's just like, holy shit, they're actually doing that. There's the excitement of hey, we're getting Bullseye, and it's not going to be Colin Farrell, so that's cool.
Colin Farrell was cool too, man.
I never miss. More peanuts, please.
Didn't he throw glass? He was throwing glass at Daredevil.
Yeah. He I think he broke a window, and then he collected the shards, and then he threw them off. It kind of was just like he was dealing cards with them. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good. Let's see here. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is something I'm very excited about as well. Legitimately excited, I will say. CW, my favorite network of all time, of course. There's going to be another big superhero crossover event that will happen later this fall. A big combination of Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends Tomorrow, whatever fucking shows they have starting up there. And at the CW upfront presentation, Stephen Amell, who is one half of the team responsible for getting this wine that I'm sipping on onto my into this glass right now. As a side note, he made a statement saying that we're incredibly excited to announce that we'll be doing another crossover event, which I just talked about, and we'll be introducing a new character. For the very first time appearing, we'll be fighting alongside Batwoman, which is terrific.
That's pretty cool.
So Batwoman is not Batgirl, just as a side note for anyone that might be confusing and conflating those characters. Batwoman is the alter ego of Kate Kane. She's currently one of the main characters in the Detective Comics run that's going on right now. James Tynion's working on. It's a fucking awesome run.
Is that the one with the robot Batmans?
That was the previous Detective Comics run.
Oh, okay.
So this is the Rebirth run, so it's a little bit different. So I think it's like a team up of Batman, Batwoman, Clayface, Spoiler, and I think one of the Robins. So I don't know. I think there's 6 on the team. It's pretty good. But anyway, Batwoman has a fucking amazing design. She's kind of got kind of a pale white kind of skin complexion, and the bat mat, like it's like a half mask that horns that kind of extend above, and she's got like super long flowing red hair and like stark red lipstick. Like it's I love the design of Batwoman, and she's an awesome character. I think she was introduced in the 60s, and then they kind of did away with the character, and then when they brought her back, I think in maybe the 2000s or something like that, for the New 52 run, they basically totally redid the character. So I think she's one of the biggest openly gay characters in the DC Comics universe. So obviously representation's a pretty big deal. So it's cool from that standpoint, but I really like her characterization. She's kind of militarized. She's got her dad's a bit of a dick. I think it's a general or something. It's cool. It's a cool character. I'm excited to see that they're bringing her into the universe here, the CW verse. And they've also announced that Gotham City, the city of Gotham City, is going to be thrown into the crossover event that they're doing as well. So no Batman, because they can't use Batman, of course. Why would you use Batman? Also, to be fair, it is also kind of one of those things where the Green Arrow in this universe, he's just Green Batman. So
that's true.
Is it necessary to have an actual proper Batman? I mean, I say yes, but it's not going to happen. So stop trying to make it happen.
That's it. Hang it up.
Exactly. Hang the cape up. Next news that we have up is also Jordan Peele related. We talked about him working on his next film, Us, last week, and he's apparently working on a TV show as well. He's a very prolific worker. His TV show is called The Hunt, and it has been given a 10-episode straight-to-series order over at Amazon Studios.
Okay.
So we know that he's a very talented fella, but this show sounds pretty fucking badass because it follows a diverse bands of Nazi hunters living in 1977 New York City, who discover that hundreds of high-ranking Nazi officials are living among us and conspiring to create a Fourth Reich in the U.S. The team of hunters set on a bloody quest to bring the Nazis to justice and thwart their new genocidal plans. So Jordan
Christ.
Peele plus Inglourious Bastards plus 1970s equals fuck yes.
Oh, that's going to be crazy.
Yes, I that sounds awesome. He's producing it, I believe, is the connection here for Jordan Peele to the series itself. So yeah, I mean,
very yes. I'm excited.
Yes, hashtag very yes. We're already giving it an early rating on it. And last bit of news this week. Amazon is in talks to revive The Expanse for a fourth season.
No. What? That's not in the weekly news script.
Haha, I successfully faked you out, didn't I?
Oh, you lying to me?
Well, actually, the news that I put on there is actually something that's happening, but I figured I might pull a fast one on you and see if you had heard about this already. So, Variety has confirmed with sources that the streaming giant Amazon is in talks to pick up the sci-fi series for what would be its fourth season.
I think I might cry. I think I might cry right now.
This is the type of emotions I was trying to elicit. I wanted to catch you by surprise and
so Colton generates these scripts and then runs them by me, asks me if I have any questions. I look everything up. Okay. That was not included in the script, and I've been so down about it. It's changed my viewing of the show that it hasn't been renewed yet, and I think I'm gonna cry.
Just let it out, man. Just embrace your emotions. I had a little cry earlier today. We'll talk about it later. All right, it's okay. It's okay to let some tears out. Every now and then. You just got to be one with your emotions.
Tell me all about it, man. This is such good news.
I don't really have much else to say. I mean, Amazon's in talks. It's big enough that multiple trades have picked it up. I'm actually using the Variety one here because it seemed the most accurate. The Hollywood Reporter article literally stated that Amazon has picked it up, and then in the body of their article, they're like, the deal is not done yet. I'm like, those are not the same thing. Don't fuck with my emotions. Do not fuck with my emotions! You know? So... I hope that we can have some more definitive, word to talk about next week. Hopefully Amazon can seal the deal, or someone can seal the deal. Anyone at this point.
Somebody pick the fucking thing up, please.
Yeah, man. Like, seriously. So that's the last bit of news that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to leave you on a very nice note as we move forward into our coverage of the main event tonight.
All right.
Well, sort of. I say I've got some box office information that I'd like to talk about.
You're gonna slide that one in there.
In our new recurring segment, the box office breakdown. So this is related to our main event, our main content in Deadpool 2, but I did want to make a couple notes about a little movie called Avengers: Infinity War, which had its fourth weekend. Small correction to what I reported last week. The actuals came in for its opening in China, and it actually upticked to just a hair over $200 million for that opening weekend, which means that it is the first movie ever to debut in multiple markets with $200+ million. Round of applause for Avengers: Infinity War. Made close to $30 million in its fourth weekend, about a 52% drop. Of course, its legs were greatly impacted by, some direct superhero competition, but it held pretty well, I would say, in spite of that. It is within $4 million of crossing $600 million domestically. It's at $1.8 billion worldwide, so it's closing in on $2 billion. I think it will make it there, but it'll probably be a close one. We'll see how it does for the stretch run here, now that it's got some pretty significant competition between Deadpool and Star Wars coming out next week. So Deadpool 2. He talked a little bit about the box office figures of the first Deadpool movie back in 2016, a couple years ago. This one set some records in its own right. It had the largest preview night for an R-rated film ever at $18.6 million in just the Thursday night grosses alone. And those get rolled into the opening day numbers, where it had $53.3 million, which landed at the highest opening day for an R-rated film ever. Both of those records, as a side note, were previously held by It, Chapter 1. So maybe It Chapter 2 might be some forthcoming competition on that front. It had less strong legs throughout the weekend, actually. So it closed at $125.5 million domestically for the weekend, which puts it at the second highest R-rated opening behind the original Deadpool. It captured close to $175 million overseas, which makes it the largest Fox debut internationally ever for the studio. Wow. And it was just a little over $300 million worldwide in its entire opening, which is quite good. It had probably close to twice the budget that the first one did. And we'll talk about that because you can definitely feel it and see it on screen. But quite a pretty good numbers here. I think that placing it kind of in between Avengers and Star Wars is going to be a very bad idea. I think it would have had far better legs in August, September, where it could have pretty much ran uninhibited for at least 3-4 weeks. Right. Mm-hmm. But that's the decision they made, and that's the decision they're going to have to stick with. So it's done well. It didn't do as much as the first one, but in all fairness, the first one opened on a holiday weekend, and its Sunday was a Valentine's Day, so it had some inflations kind of towards its numbers that helped kind of buoy it towards the numbers that it had. So certainly nothing to scoff at anyway.
It's a big year for superhero movies, man. God damn.
Yes, it is. And
Black Panther, Infinity War, and then Deadpool 2. This is some crazy numbers.
Fun doesn't stop here. Got Ant-Man coming out in a couple months' time.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about a movie called Aquaman coming out in December.
No, is that's this year too?
Yeah, man.
Oh, yes, I'm so excited.
Can't forget about that. Let's talk about Deadpool 2. It's written by Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, writers of the first Deadpool, alongside Ryan Reynolds. Who,
very nice.
He's pretty heavily involved in this sort of thing. It's directed by David Leitch, who was a co-director on John Wick, did Atomic Blonde last year. Stars Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson / Deadpool, Josh Brolin as Cable, Morena Baccarin, Julian Dennison, Sassy Beats, and many more that we might talk about possibly in a spoiler section. Do you want the studio synopsis for this, or do you want the real synopsis for this? Because they're both good in their own ways. I mean, one is a little bit more reflective of the actual movie, but I don't know.
Want the official, man.
You want well, actually, technically speaking, the official one is the studio one. Oh, so you want that one?
Well, I'll give
you that one. I'll give you both. You want me to give you both? I'll give you both.
Yeah, give us both. Yeah, let's compare them.
All right, I'm going to give you the studio one. This is the one that came out months ahead of its release. It says, after surviving a near-fatal bovine attack, a disfigured cafeteria chef, Wade Wilson, struggles to fulfill his dream of becoming Mayberry's hottest bartender while also learning to cope with his lost sense of taste. Searching to regain his spice for life, as well as a flux capacitor, Wade must battle ninjas, the Yakuza, and a pack of sexually aggressive canines as he journeys around the world to discover the importance of family, friendship, and flavor, finding new taste for adventure and earning the coveted coffee mug title of world's best lover. That's the official line.
That's pretty good.
It's the official line. I mean, the studio put it out themselves, so that's clearly what the movie's about, right?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So the one that's a little bit more succinct, a little bit more true to what the actual movie entails, foul-mouthed mutant mercenary Wade Wilson, also known as Deadpool, brings together a team of fellow mutants to protect a young boy with supernatural abilities from the brutal, time-traveling mutant Cable. So I feel like I've been talking way too much in this episode. So Deadpool 2, tell me what you thought about it.
I thought Deadpool 2 was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, man. I went in thinking it was going to be pretty funny. It is just non-stop joking and hamming around, and a lot of references, which I enjoyed those jokes probably the best. But I thought the action was pretty cool too. I enjoyed the new characters a whole lot. And overall, I really liked it, man. The increase in budget is definitely evident, and it's stretched throughout the whole movie versus the first one, which had one major set piece.
Basically two, but yes, I agree.
And I think, that's pretty much it. You go to watch a goofy, hammy superhero movie, almost, make fun of the genre a little bit and just have a good time with it. And it's a really funny show, really funny movie, I should say. Yeah, that's all I got in a nutshell. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I really enjoyed Domino. I thought Domino was fucking awesome. I enjoyed the X-Force. And yeah, that's all I got on the shallow end there. Not too much I can say outside of spoilers, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one that I think there's a lot to expand upon when we get into our spoiler section. And a lot of that is just because it's dense. I mean, there's just a lot to unpack with it, but it's also one of those things where I think a lot of these jokes work better if you go in blind, so I don't want to, get crazy with it and spoil things accidentally and ruin the fun for other people. But in terms of my overall thoughts, I mean, if you saw the first Deadpool, it's that, but bigger, and sometimes better, sometimes not. It's that with a bigger budget, which means you get more than the two set pieces you got in the first one. You get a lot more characters. You get your Cable, you get Domino, you get some other people that come in, and
Terry fucking Crews.
Terry Crews comes in, yeah. So there's a lot of recognizable faces, a lot of recognizable characters, some cool cameos here and there. There's a lot of fun to be had here with this movie. I personally found it a little messy. Honestly, I felt like at times, at least in terms of the first act, it was a little directionless. I kind of was like, it's rehashing the first one a little bit. I don't know exactly where it's going with it, what it's trying to achieve, but I thought that by the time it got towards its second act, it kind of put the pieces together and got its shit together in a big way. And then the laughs started coming pretty consistently for me. And that's not to say that it wasn't funny throughout the first bit of it, but I was just kind of like, it doesn't have quite the same magic so far, but it does recapture that spirit, and a lot of it is still great fun to kind of behold in terms of, the gore, the violence of it, the humor behind it, and it's very comic booky. It's very enjoyable. Ryan Reynolds is wonderful. I think he's even since X-Men Origins, he's gotten Wade Wilson down to a T. I say Wade Wilson specifically. I don't say Deadpool specifically because they royally fucked that bit up in that one. But I thought that this one brought a few new characters to the table. That you mentioned Domino, Sassy Beach. She's amazing here, and Domino is a super fun addition to the cast. Josh Brolin fucking killed it as Thanos. Kills it here as Cable.
He was awesome in this movie. I think.
And he's a wonderful foil for a Deadpool character. He's a very gruff, serious, macho man kind of guy, and that plays exceptionally well against a smarmy, wisecracking Deadpool. So I had a good time with this one. Interestingly enough, I saw this on Saturday. We're recording this a couple days. I think I actually liked this movie back thinking on it. I walked out and I'm like, I liked it, but I wasn't 100% sold on it. And then I've been thinking about it, and there's a lot of jokes that have popped in my head. I'm like, fuck, that was pretty funny, wasn't it? There's a lot of moments of like that where I'm like, I think I need to see this a second time. And I will see it a second time. I haven't had a chance to just yet, but I think that if I sit down for the second time, I usually find that my second time I enjoy things because it's, my expectations are kind of set walking in the door, and I'm like, okay, I can look forward to this, or I know that this is going to happen, so I can readjust my expectations, or, come to terms with certain things, and it kind of helps me, with enjoying it a little bit more the second time around. So I'm looking forward to seeing it a second time, honestly, because I think there's a lot to like. Not all of it totally landed for me. Some of the jokes fell flat. That's just kind of the nature of the beast, where, hey, there's 100 jokes flying at you a minute. Some of them just go right over your head. Some of them I don't think were just funny for me, and then some of them fucking just absolutely kill.
They hit you hard, yeah. You feel it makes you, when you watch a movie like this in theaters with just so much fast, loose humor, and they say something and you're the only one laughing. Like I was sitting almost like I was sitting in the edge of the row, I was over there by myself, but there were some people scattered out and stuff, and kind of felt like I was watching it by myself because I was out loud laughing, and I don't think anybody else got anything. And I don't know, kind of felt ashamed to be laughing.
Yeah, there was definitely a handful of jokes in this one that I could tell no one around me had any idea what the fuck was going on. Which, I saw it on a Saturday night. I usually like to see movies like this on opening night because that's kind of my crowd. That's a fun crowd. A lot of those guys are going to get it, and you start seeing it a little bit later in the week, or the weekend. You get kind of more of a casual audience where they're not going to get every comic book reference that comes across, or they're not going to get every little meta joke or anything like that. Which, to be fair, in a movie like this, I don't think anyone's going to get everything because there's just so much. Like, honestly, it might even be a case of one joke was super funny, everyone's still laughing, and then you missed the second and third and fourth jokes that came on the heels of that joke.
Nonstop, nonstop.
So that's certainly something I think that would, you could benefit from a second viewing in the sense that you can have, you can digest things that you didn't get a chance to relieve and hear or process the first time around. Were there emotional beats in this movie as well? Like good, strong emotional beats? Yeah, there were attempts. Yeah, definitely. I didn't, because some of it worked for me, some of it didn't. I've watched
some. I've spent the weekend crying this weekend. I've watched a lot of emotional shit, and I don't know if I'm just feeling emotional. I don't know what the deal is, but I couldn't remember if this one made me emotional, or if one of the 4 movies I watched this weekend made me kind of emotional. I couldn't remember, but I remember I want to say Deadpool hit me in the feels a little bit. I think it was the latter part of the movie, but I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, well, there's definitely, moments in this, I think, that we're trying to spark an emotional connection or an emotional moment. Some of which worked, some of it didn't. As with the humor, I thought that it was inconsistent in that regard, but that is also something that, I don't know, seeing it a second time, that might change my opinion of that. So I don't know specifically what exactly you're referring to, but I think that there's probably certainly something in this that might have evoked that sort of response for me, certainly.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the spoiler section. We
will indeed. I'm trying to think if there's any other kind of more non-spoiler things that I can talk about. Like I said, I liked it. I liked the first one a lot, to be fair. I rewatched the first one maybe a few hours before I walked into the theater for this, and there's a lot of kind of gags that are continuing on from the first one. So I would say watch the first one, at least have at least seen it once before you watch this one, but I guess it's not 100% essential. But I do think that you'd be doing yourself a disservice, certainly in terms of kind of getting a feeler, for what this movie could be. I guess, do you have anything do you want to add, or do you want to move into recommendation?
We can move into recommendations.
Okay. So I wanted to move into recommendation because that ties into what I was going to talk about for my recommendation, which is that, I liked the first one. I liked the style of the first one. I liked the humor of the first one. And you could tell that it was hamstrung by its budget limitations, which, again, you've talked about, at the top of the episode. But I will say that if you didn't care for the first one, this one's not going to do anything to change your mind. It is that, but more, it's just that amplified to 11 effectively. So since I liked the first one, and in spite of the issues that I did have with this one, I found that it was quite enjoyable overall. And I think that it made great use of that expanded budget to up the set pieces, to up the cinematic moments in this one, and to bring in some really cool, comic book elements in the form of Cable and Domino and, some of these other characters and stuff like that. And I think you should see it in theaters. There's a lot of fun to be had in this, especially if you can get an audience that's eating the shit up. And I think that just from what I've seen online, this has had a pretty positive response, and I think deservingly so overall. So, that's where I stand. What about you?
Oh, it's not for everybody. I've talked to the bit of people that I talk to. Some people say they think it's awesome. They love it. Other people I talk to just they don't. Much like you said, if you didn't care for the first one, this one is certainly not for you. So, like I said, it's a polarized thing. I do think. I think on a what am I trying to say? Cinematographic, I guess. On a cinematographic, as a movie, I think it's a well-made movie. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that I think it's worth seeing in theaters. It's fun. I think it's more well written than it isn't. It's inconsistent. To be fair, but I think it lands more oftentimes than it doesn't. And you could tell that everybody involved had a really good time filming it. And that's not the case for some movies. So I don't know. I say go see it in theaters. It's worth it.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, man.
Yeah. I just as an addendum to my my little moment there. I agree, and you can tell that Ryan Reynolds just absolutely adores this character. Obviously, him getting a writing credit on this is probably a pretty big testament to that. But he puts his all into this, and we appreciate him doing that. So I think we'll have plenty of things to talk about in spoilers if we're ready to move on. So full spoilers for Deadpool 2. So I'll start with, I guess maybe we can bounce back a little bit on this, but my biggest problem that I had is this movie started off in a very frustrating place for me to watch, with some extremely lazy writing that really kind of tainted my perception of it for a good close to an hour of it, until it kind of won me over again. And that's kind of where I'm thinking that, okay, if I watched it again, knowing what's going to happen, maybe that it's not going to bother me as much. And I expected it from the trailer. And what I'm talking about is they decided to take the Kingsman approach of fridging their major female character pretty much right off the bat in service of motivating the main character. And it's just like, holy shit. Seriously, guys? Like, you take the one big thing about the first movie, which is Vanessa, his one love, Vanessa, and you kill her. And it's just like, Christ, like, this is the most lazy writing you could possibly think of. And they make fun of that. And, so we'll talk about it in a second, but, you've got this, they kind of did the same thing as the first one, where they had a fun intro sequence with the credits, where it's, starring some asshole or blah, 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 stuff like that, and written by, wait, did they seriously just fucking do that? That's kind of what they did with this one. And it's like, just because you make fun of it in your opening credits doesn't mean that you're absolved of actually doing the thing. And, obviously they undo it, later on, and we'll get to that a bit later, but it's just like, that is not the note you should start your movie on.
But maybe it's like a satirical kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Well,
maybe
that's what I'm saying, is that they tried to do that, but they tried to have it and eat their cake too. Like, it doesn't work like that. You can't do
you
both.
did it, you asshole.
It's just one of the, it's just a frustrating plot device that gets used way too often, especially in comic books, and as an extension here, as an adaptation of the comic books. And it's just, hey, maybe don't use the most obvious fucking plot device in the book to motivate your character. Like, it's cheap, it's boring, everyone's seen it before, it's frustrating to watch, and it doesn't serve your movie at all. And here it's him, like, it's to motivate him to protect the kid and all that. But you didn't need it. You didn't need it. And clearly you didn't need it because they wrote it in a way that they could undo it by the end of the movie with absolutely no consequences whatsoever. In which case, why do it at all? So that's where I stand on it. I said, you're welcome to disagree with me here, but that's something for me that just really just pissed me off right off the bat. And, I thought that maybe they were going to have a clever spin on it before the end of the movie when they were making fun of it in the opening credits of, like, JK lol, which again, they did do, to an extent, but the rest of the movie basically plays out as if that is 100% what happened. So do you agree with me or do you disagree with me on this?
I don't know. It didn't bother me as bad.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as like Kingsman: The Golden Circle, partially because the rest of that movie just kind of sucked ass too. So it didn't do anything to kind of resolve my lingering resentment.
And she was not present for the entire movie in that one. She was a recurring character in this one.
Right, and they did use the Vanessa character kind of throughout and have those minimal interactions with Wade throughout. And I read this online. I don't know if you got this at all, but some people were speculating that maybe she's actually Lady Death when he's talking to her in those moments, which I'm like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. Like, if I frame it in that perspective, is that anything that occurred to you? I don't know if I just missed that entirely. Okay.
No.
I was like, oh, maybe I'm just an idiot over here. But like, oh, that's very comic booky, true to comic books. And I'm like, okay, they didn't take that angle with Thanos in Avengers. Maybe they're taking that angle here. That'd be kind of fun. So if I watch it from that perspective, I don't know if that was, it's entirely possible that was exactly their intent and I just missed it entirely. But I kind of like it from that perspective because I found that whole thing of him talking to her and like, oh, no, it's not your time. Like, I found that whole thing hokey. Like, I was just like, I don't.
The whole bit there, that whole thing is hokey. But yeah. But like I said, the thing, the fridging didn't upset me that bad. I didn't really. Yeah. But
I didn't get that impression that it bothered you as much. But yeah,
no, not really. But I tell you what I did enjoy thoroughly from the beginning was that Bond intro.
Yes, that was fucking hilarious. Amazing. Yeah, that was wonderful. I really enjoyed that, and like I said, I was a little bit like, okay, I'm a little pissed that they did that, but then they had literally in the opening credits of like, holy shit, what, seriously? That's actually, they just killed her? Like, I was like, oh, okay, they get it. I was like, they get it. I was like, okay, I like this. It's a pretty good sequence on its own. And I think it's directed by one of the guys that killed John Wick's dog, which was pretty fucking great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great, little bits in that. But again, that is also like, they did that in the first one. So it's not as funny as it was, but it's still pretty good. Obviously, having the actual Bond-esque cinematics was something that elevated a bit. The Celine Dion song "Ashes" is quite excellent in its own right. So
I don't mean to hop ahead. I don't know if we're doing this in a particular order.
Yeah,
but,
we're spoilers. Just jump around.
The fucking the Deadpool. Holy shit, Deadpool!
Yeah. The Juggernaut song at the end. Holy shit balls!
I was losing my shit, man, in that theater. I thought that was hilarious.
That was awesome. Well, I said there was. Well, we'll probably save this for later, but there was the mid-credit sequence, and then there wasn't a proper post-credit sequence. But I wasn't mad about waiting because of that shit at the end. That was incredible. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. That was wonderful. Yeah, so I'm okay with just I'm okay with just jumping around here and spoilers, just because we're not going to talk about everything, because if we try to, we wouldn't be able to remember everything. But if we tried to, we would be here for 4 hours, and we are definitely not doing that. So the X-Force stuff, that's when the movie came together for me. That's when I kind of got over my little shit, and I was just like, all right, I'm having a pretty good time with this. So when they assemble as the team, we saw the auditions bit in that final trailer, which I really enjoyed. And I don't think we saw the audition for Vanisher in the trailer. But Vanisher was a great fucking character. But the short-lived nature of the X-Force, most of the X-Force, I should say, was goddamn amazing. Like, there's a bunch of subtle references. I guess they're not that subtle, but there's references to, like, hey, there's some high winds in the area. It's a little windy out here. Is that going to be a problem?
This got fucked up.
Oh, God. And just seeing everyone just fucking parachute down and just die in horrible ways. Who was Vanisher
when he lands into those lines? Who was that?
That was Brad Pitt, man.
Okay, that was Brad Pitt, right?
Yeah, that was fucking Brad Pitt.
Okay, I thought it was Brad Pitt. I'm pretty sure. Okay.
Yeah, that was Brad Pitt. Apparently he filmed his cameo in 2 hours on set. Which there was concept art that came out very early on in the process of Brad Pitt as Cable. I don't know I don't know if you'd ever saw that. Yeah, there's no. Just look it up. There's concept art of basically like, this is what we want Cable to look like, and it's very obviously Brad Pitt. Apparently he wasn't he was in talks for the role, but he had scheduling conflicts, so he couldn't do it. But clearly he was interested enough in the project that he's like, I could be the Vanisher, and show up for my 2 hours on set. Yeah, that was an awesome cameo. Bedlam, Terry Crews, as he mentioned, in this, where he gets swatted into a bus. Rest in peace.
Yeah, he flies right into the windshield of the bus. That was great.
Shatterstar, which was incredible when they actually were like, "Oh yeah, I'm from the planet Mojo world," and I'm like, "Holy fuck, they're going with it!" Like, yeah, that's awesome.
That got me pretty hyped.
And he also has a quick, swift death
in the
blades of the helicopter. Yeah. Zeitgeist, Bill Skarsgård. I say we've been talking about it all day. So Pennywise shows up here.
Oh man,
goes on the wood chipper
too.
Oh yeah, and he takes out the best X-Force member. Well, second best X-Force member, maybe third best. Peter. Peter is excellent. So part of me wishes they didn't spoil the Peter bit in the trailer, but it was fucking hilarious there, and I still felt like it was pretty funny here.
And he got fucked up by that vomit. That was hilarious.
That was pretty great. But Domino is probably my favorite X-Force member. She was fucking amazing.
Oh, by far.
She was incredible. Just the interactions were obviously fantastic, but the way that they depicted her kind of cinematically was just on point. Just completely on point.
Walks around, does whatever she wants pretty much. It's pretty awesome. Her sense of humor was really good too. She was a very organic character. And she bounced well with Ryan Reynolds, I think. It was definitely really cool. Really enjoyed her performance.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Cable, though. Cable was a brute, man. He was cool as shit.
Yeah, Cable was awesome. I mean, Josh Brolin was fucking awesome here. A little bit different shade than Thanos, but he still kind of has that gruff personality, and he owned it. I was wondering how much they would get into Cable's character, and we got like the backstory with his family and stuff, and like that was his principal motivation, which they got fridged too. But I guess I was less frustrated by that, in the sense that he comes from like a fucking war-torn future where shit's obviously gone sideways in a big way,
Yeah.
And we spent a whole movie about Wade and Vanessa's relationship in the first one, and I just watched it hours prior, and I'm like, fuck you. So I had less of a reaction to that, with his character. But they didn't make any mention. Well, they showed, like when you had like the shirtless scenes and you see kind of like his arm and way that it's interacting, like it's clearly obviously the technovirus that's taking over his body, but I don't think they ever mentioned the word technovirus in the movie.
I don't know anything about technovirus. What the fuck's technovirus?
Well, I mean, that's basically that's why he has a metal arm, is he's in this fucked up future where... Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like a Winter Soldier situation, even though they make that joke of, like just, hey, he's just a dude with his metal arm. Like if you watch it again, like look at the way like it's consuming his body, like it's clearly something that's like overtaking him. And that's just like something that happens in the future that he's part of. And he is the son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, who is
Cyclops, right?
Yeah, Cyclops and Madeline Pryor, who is the clone of Jean Grey. So he's effectively the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey, but not quite.
What's his mutant powers?
Because comics. So I think he's got like telekinesis, and he's got some other powers in the comics as well, which they didn't really clearly explain. He's obviously got some shit going on, but it doesn't quite explain exactly what's going on. I'm looking it up to see what his telepathy, telekinesis, technopathy, expert marksman, and hand-to-hand combatant, and cybernetic enhancement. So that's his comic book iteration that I'm seeing from the Wikipedia entry. So that there's bits of that obviously kind of drawn upon here, but it's not totally spelled out. I wouldn't say, but he's badass. He's definitely badass. And we certainly see the telekinetic abilities or some variation of that with him, kind of with the guns and stuff like that he can kind of pull towards them and such. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. He's definitely a cool guy.
Yeah, it's badass. Definitely a badass character in this. This might be the best X-Men movie,
without a doubt.
And it's a weird sort of way, because this is the first time for me that an X-Men-ish movie hasn't been embarrassed to be an X-Men movie in some ways. You know what I mean? Like, it's just straight up, fuck it, we're doing the X-Men. With, the costumes and stuff, and, a big boy coming out to play. I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Yeah, no, Juggernaut was fucking cool. I had no idea Juggernaut was going to come out. And when the Juggernaut came out and he looked the way he did, I was all about it. I was very excited.
Yeah.
Is it confirmed who played this guy?
Yes, it is. Juggernaut was portrayed by CGI with the voice of Ryan Reynolds.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was a deep end voice of Ryan Reynolds. He's credited as Juggernaut as himself in the credits. So I was just like, what? But the writers talked about it. So that was Ryan that did the voice. They just played with it in post. So that was fucking awesome. I mean, he was very obviously CGI. Like, even when you could kind of see his face, and I'm like, I don't think that's intended to be a real person under there. Like, he's got his comically large proportions. So certainly a much better interpretation of the character than Vinnie Jones was, even though I just quoted him because it's so memorable. But that was badass. I saw something. There was like a trailer or a TV spot where there's a very, very brief glimpse of his helmet, and it's not even obvious that it's his helmet, but people online were like, fuck, is Juggernaut in this? And so I think I'd seen those headlines and I kind of forgot about it. And then when there was there's the monster in the basement, and then I think you hear his voice from the other side of the cell. I'm like, oh fuck, they might be doing Juggernaut in this. And when they did, I'm like, this is awesome. That whole Colossus Juggernaut showdown at the end was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was cool. There was a lot of cool shit in this. Black Tom Cassidy is a pretty big Marvel villain too. He's not a very big villain, and he's not a very big villain in this, to be fair.
You just know he's African American.
Yeah, that racist Cable, man. that was a joke for me that they used multiple times that worked for me every time.
It's pretty good.
There were jokes for me that didn't land at all.
I'm not racist.
Yeah, that was a good one. I thought like for instance, the one that comes to mind that they used a lot was the dubstep joke, and I didn't find that funny pretty much any time they used it personally. But
didn't really do a whole lot for me either.
Yeah, like I it felt like if they had done that 4 years ago, it might have been funny, but now it was just like that's not going to age well.
Then he falls. Deadpool falls from the catwalk in the prison and lands on his back. And it breaks his back. I laughed my ass off at that. And then he starts choking Cable with his arm. The whole prison sequence was hilarious. I laughed that entire time. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, there's lots in this that were pretty good. I read online, apparently the Black Tom Cassidy was apparently the biggest villain in this at one point, and then they decided to cut his role because they didn't want to spend the money to actually show him using his powers at the end. I
like what they gave us.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in here. A lot of good jokes. There's some DC jokes. There's a Martha joke in there that's pretty excellent. Lots of MCU jokes actually. Talked about the Winter Soldier one. Black Widow was a good one. Brown Panther also a good one. So I saw someone on Reddit was like, there's more MCU references in Deadpool 2 than there is in the entire Marvel Netflix universe. And I'm like, sad but true. Sad but true.
It's true. They get it with, they do a whole lot.
Yeah, no, there's good stuff. I liked a lot of this and that. What else did I like?
Oh my God, you're so dark. From the DC. Oh, that's hilarious. It's so good. It's so good. I want to watch it again. I'll get myself pumped up.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, I remember these jokes and I'm like, that was pretty fucking funny. Like I'm like, yeah, like I want to see this again. Like I feel like I would laugh more if I saw it. Like just because I'm like, that's a joke that 2 days on is still fucking funny to think about. There was one that was particularly great. Having just watched the first Deadpool, you didn't watch it before you watched this one, did you? Okay, so there's a scene of the first one where he's talking to Blind Al, and he's like. There's 116 kilos of cocaine buried in the apartment right next to the cure for blindness, and it's just a throwaway joke in the first one. But then there's they revisit that when he literally digs up the cocaine next to a bag of cocaine also labeled a cure for blindness. I'm like, that's incredible. That's an incredible joke right there.
He's got the baby legs.
Oh God, shirt cocking it, man! It's fucking shirt cocking it. That was insane. The Basic Instinct reference there. Oh man, that whole sequence was incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Which, I guess to say we haven't mentioned T.J. Miller at all. I say he's still too busy calling in bomb threats. But I like T.J. Miller in spite of him apparently being a kind of a shitbag in real life. I think he's still funny, and I'm glad they didn't cut around.
Is that the dude that is that the idiot that did something about the fucking bomb or something?
Yeah. He drunkenly called in a bomb threat on a train.
Yeah,
and got arrested for it.
Yeah, guy's an idiot.
Yeah,
but he's pretty funny.
Yeah, he was funny here definitely. There's I don't know if you noticed this. I noticed one half of this, and the rest I had to kind of fill in on the internet. So the first scene where Cable shows up, there's the two rednecks on like the back of the truck.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you notice who was playing? Who the two actors were in that scene?
No.
Okay, so I noticed that Alan Tudyk was definitely one of them. He was K2 Firefly. I think he's Bosch, Firefly. So he was very obviously the one on the right because he just looked like Alan Tudyk. But apparently the one on the left was someone very heavily coated in makeup. And in the credits they're credited as I think Dickie Greenleaf if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
It was Matt Damon. Fucking Matt Damon was in this shit.
No, he was the one that was talking the whole time, pretty much.
He was like the fat one, I think. Yeah. Apparently, it was Matt Damon and just very heavily coated in makeup, and I had no clue whatsoever that it was him.
Is Matt Damon ever going to have an official role in a Marvel movie?
At this point, I feel like it's better off that Matt Damon just plays himself in every movie. Like I like to think that his Thor Ragnarok cameo was literally just the actor Matt Damon that Loki came to Earth and was like, Matt Damon, I would like you to be in an Asgardian production. Matt Damon's like, sure, I'll do it.
I think it might be a reoccurring thing with his cameos. Maybe. Let him have a cameo in every movie. He'll take over.
Maybe he can be the new Stan Lee.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty good. What else? The Passion of the Christ box office joke was incredible. I'm pretty sure I was the only one in the theater that understood that joke.
Yeah, no, I thought that was funny.
And Yukio. We haven't talked about Yukio. Hi, Yukio. That was fucking amazing. Hi, Wade. Oh, man. So simple, but that was a joke that happened 10 times that fucking just crushed it every time. So like I said, there were ones that were just absolutely gold. And that was definitely one of those for me. So that's pretty much it for me as far as the scattered thoughts that I have for the movie itself. Do you have any last minute things? Because last thing I want to touch on just in general will be the credit sequence, which certainly Warren's talking about. Okay, so you ready to jump to that?
Yeah, we can do that. All
right, so the mid-credit sequence, possibly one of the best credit sequences cinematic history. It's a little time-traveling shenanigans. So Wade fixes, or I guess Yukio and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who's great in this, by the way. We didn't mention her at all, but she's great in this. Justin Bieber. They fix the time-traveling device that Cable was using to go back in time. And so there's a few things that Wade chooses to do. So he saves Vanessa, which, like I said, so they kind of undo that whole thing in the beginning. But, they structured the movie in a way that probably doing that doesn't really fuck with the timeline too much. So like that was probably kind of intentional. And so theoretically, we probably are to assume that Vanessa is now alive in the current timeline.
Right.
Which is cool. But again, it kind of makes the whole sacrifice and motivation kind of pointless in general, in which case, did you need it? In which case, I would say no, but that is what it is. I'm now beating the dead horse of that. I realize that. But she's alive. She's well and good, apparently, so that's good. And Peter, saves Peter. So Vanessa and Peter are back on the board, and I think that's important to note. But the next two bits of this sequence are just absolutely mind-boggling, just fucking incredible. So he goes back and murders Weapon 11, the iteration of Deadpool that we saw in X-Men Origins Wolverine, at least that I saw, and then you saw.
Was that clip pulled straight from Wolverine?
So the Hugh Jackman part of that was exactly from the movie, and then I think there's parts of that I read online that they used from kind of the raw footage of the movie. So I think probably maybe like his reaction shot, they kind of pulled something from the B footage to use as part of this. They didn't film anything new for the Hugh Jackman for the Hugh Jackman side of it, but they did film obviously the sequence of him just fucking murdering the shit out of Weapon 11. That was obviously new and just meant to look like it was part of the same shot. But that was amazing. And then going back to Ryan Reynolds reading the Green Lantern script and just shooting him in the head. Oh my god. It's
Did you see Warner Brothers tweet? They tweeted him for the Green Lantern ring back.
I did not see that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, Warner Brothers tweeted them and they said Ryan Reynolds, or they used the whatever the Twitter handle is. We're gonna need the Green Lantern ring back.
Well, even if Ryan Reynolds is dead, then that should fly off to its next host. That's fair. So
that's funny.
To this day, WB still does not understand how the Green Lantern mythos works. So that's par for the course. Yeah, that was awesome. Putting you on the spot here a little bit. If you had to pick a favorite moment, do you have a favorite moment that you could point to?
Shit. I think that the fight there at the end with the Juggernaut song and the Juggernaut song, it hit me hard. I thought that was awesome. They had like a whole operatic fucking this like Sephiroth song with the Juggernaut. I thought it was awesome. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that was probably my favorite. There were a lot of very happy moments in this movie though, so I don't know. I don't want to sell it short, but off the top of my head, I think that's probably one of my favorites at least.
Yeah. I if I had to choose, just the hardest I laughed was that credit sequence. Just when they got to that Weapon 11 Green Lantern 1-2 punch, I was done.
Yeah,
I was
good.
just fucking rolling, man. Like, it was incredible. So that has to be my pick, because I think that in a movie that overall lands more jokes than it doesn't.
It's an entire sequence of successful jokes.
Yeah. I was like, oh, cool, they save Vanessa. Oh, cool, they save Peter, and then that just the humor in that sequence was just unparalleled. So that's my pick. So that's Deadpool 2. Do you have any last minute thoughts to offer on it, or are you ready to get on with the show?
We can go on with the show.
All right. Well, I'll kick it over to you. You mentioned you watched a handful of movies on your end, so I'll let you talk about that. Anything else you've been up to?
Okay. Well, I watched, caught up on all my shows, caught the season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Or we can talk about it now.
We can talk about it now. That is something that I watched that, it made me cry.
The tears started coming, didn't they? Yes, they did, man. I sent you the Flight of the Conchords I'm Not Crying video immediately after.
Is that what it was in reference to?
That's what it was in reference to, yes. I sent it devoid of context, but that's... yeah, man, that S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, I watched the penultimate and the season finale kind of back to back, and both were fucking amazing. Like, I've enjoyed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought the first half was better, and generally speaking, and I was like, this is still good, but it's not like blowing me away like it has historically, over the past season and a half. But damn, those 2 episodes fucking got me good. Like, those were really fucking strong episodes.
Yeah, they were.
And they clearly crafted, I would say, the final episode to, as just in case, like, hey, if this is the end of the series, like, we're going out on a powerful note, and damn, did they hit the mark. Like,
it very could well be the end of the series. I'd be okay with it.
And exactly. If it was the end of the series, I would have been okay with it. I'm happy that we're getting more. I think there's certainly, it's interesting. They left kind of a pretty big open thread, with one of the characters, which do you just want to do open spoilers here? Can we do that? We can do that, right? This is our show, right?
Yeah, fucking talk about it, dude.
All right, so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spoilers for those that are not caught up and don't want to hear spoilers.
It's end of the season spoilers,
yeah,
that's right.
Yes, yeah, all the way through the end of season 5. So Fitz dies, and I was just like, fuck me. Like, goddamn, they cannot let Fitzsimmons just be happy. Like, I just want Fitzsimmons to be happy. That's the only thing I want in my life. I want them to be more happy than I am, all right?
Man.
And they're always, Simmons was off, on the fucking other planet. And what? Is that the beginning of season 3, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
Damn, like, it's just this whole, it's just doom
last
and gloom
season,
for these
he was
fucking
a fucking
characters.
Hitler dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's always doom and gloom for these characters, and I'm like, oh my god, like seriously, like they killed Fitz. I'm like, that fucking sucks, And as soon as Mac walks in, and then Simmons kind of puts it together,
Oh man,
I'm like,
you just pick her
I'm
face
done.
apart. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's
that was rough.
That's when it happened, dude.
But then
it happened.
But then I was thinking about it. And, the wheels started turning for me. I'm like, wait. There's a version of Fitz off in space that, sealed himself away to be in the future. I'm like, if they've altered the timeline, if they've broken that loop, then theoretically they should be able to get him and not suffer any consequences for it. So it's just a matter of finding him. And then they obviously did go in that direction within the episode itself. And I'm like, oh, good. Thank God. We'll probably get Fitz back at some point, and then we can get a happy ending with them.
No, I didn't even think about that. I was
well, because I was distraught. Like, wait, hold. Yeah. Well, I was distraught at first, and I'm like, wait a second. But then by the end, I'm like, fuck, I'm sad about Coulson now too. And I'm like, oh man, like I can't just be happy, thinking about possibilities of the future. I got to deal with the imminent reality, presumably, of Coulson dying as well. And I'm like, shit, man, which I feel like that's kind of the way to end his character at this point.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't make it any happier, certainly. So,
but man, that fits when Mac walks in, Lord have mercy. And they're all sitting there drinking the little scotch. Shitty. Shitty. But yeah, the last 2 episodes were fucking strong.
Where
was
it was really
I at?
strong. That was it.
Expanse.
That's the only thing you mentioned.
Oh, Lord I think I texted you after this last episode of The Expanse. Super strong episode. It was really good.
Yeah, I think I am sad to say I'm not caught up. I'm part of the problem still. But I think that what I understand is that episode you watched was the last bit from the second book, from Caliban's War. So I think that's kind of shit popping off in a big way. So I think moving forward, you'll probably see a little bit more of a reset in terms of kind of
what's going on,
maybe some new characters and stuff like that. At least that's my assumption, having not watched through Where You Are. I can kind of not really say that definitively, but that's kind of how they did it with season 2 when they finished Leviathan Wakes and then started jumping into the book 2 material. It was kind of a,
Yeah, Amos is a good character, man. I really enjoy Amos's character.
The Rosie crew, man, they're all great.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
But Amos is pretty great, yeah.
What else did I watch this week? Westworld.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm caught up on Westworld, so we can talk about that too.
Saws that fucking dude's head off, half off. With her,
that was awesome.
Lord have mercy. And then what's her face is learning how to like interface with the robots without using her voice, which is some crazy shit.
It's pretty crazy shit.
And they're also she's gonna fucking kill Teddy, man. She bangs him, and then they're gonna fucking murder or reprogram him, I guess.
Yeah. She's just making him a bit of an asshole.
Murder him, I guess. Reprogram him. I don't know.
Lobotomize him.
Yeah, man. Good show. Though.
I feel like Westworld's putting the pieces together. It's still got moments of like, Westworld fashion of still don't know what's happening here. But I watched. When we recorded last, you were one ahead of me, so I watched the one prior to that as well. The one with the Man in Black has the big shootout with the Confederados, and he meets up with his daughter at the tail end. That's kind of the way they leave it, and I thought that was a great episode. And they were talking about, they had the Delos guy has like his mind implanted into a host, and they were trying to have some sort of hybrid between them. Like, that's a fucking cool thread.
Yeah, that was a super cool episode.
Yeah. So that was badass. So I watched that, and then I watched the Shogun World episode, which I was fucking pumped. I was like, because I honestly just assumed that the fourth episode, because the third episode they left off with the Shogun World tease, and I was like, oh, they're going to get into it in the fourth episode, and then there was none of that, and like Maeve was literally not in it at all, and I'm like, oh. And then the fifth episode, I was like, all right, here's my Shogun World episode, and I was really happy with how they did it. Like, it was pretty clever that it was basically,
I thought it was super.
It was literally just Westworld, but with fucking Japanese characters and stuff, like, and slight change in setting. I'm like, that's actually a pretty fun way to do it. How they're recognizing, they have the Armistice meets the chick with like the dragon tattoo on her face,
right?
So she's like, wait, hold on, these are just fucking us. Like, and then the writer's like, yeah, I had to cut some corners here and there. Sorry, guys.
It's good.
But the stuff with Maeve, kind of where they're taking her character is pretty insane. Like, I'm very curious to see what the end game is with her character. And then Dolores is like, she's just straight up the villain at this point, right?
Yeah. Well,
I get like kind of the perspective of her character, but she's clearly a perversion, I would say, of kind of where she once was, or at least how we saw her in season 1. And now she's a man or a woman on a mission, and she ain't stopping for no one. So.
You can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs, I think is what they say. And she is not afraid to scramble some eggs.
She's frying them, she's scrambling them, she's cooking them over easy, she's doing whatever the fuck needs to be done. So
see, it makes you wonder. If her whole premise of her character is like, these people abuse us, and we need to seek our freedom, blah 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 blah. But what's the divide between the special not replicants? I keep wanting to call them replicants. What the fuck are they?
Hosts.
Is there a divide between a host that is free thinking and a host that is not free thinking? Because she seems to be, she seems to be villainous. She takes over a bunch of them, and they're just mindlessly doing whatever it is that maybe that's what they were talking about in this last episode, with a third of them being blank.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's clearly that whole, they're draining the lake and pulling those. Like, we still don't know what the hell's going on with that. Bernard's got some crazy ass shit that he's dealing with on his side too. We see the flashback of him just fucking murking everyone in that lab, which I guess that could be a Ford-controlled Bernard at that point, and then Bernard's just like, still don't know what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, you just don't know with the show, man. You don't know what direction it'll take.
But we still got 5 episodes, I think, in the season to go, so there's... But I feel like, compared to its first few episodes, where I'm like, all right, where's this going? Like, I'm liking...
It's a slow burn, man.
I like the direct... Yeah, it's always been a slow burn, I would say, generally speaking, but I'm like, okay, I like it more now, now that it's kind of getting to the... Like I said, I wanted to see the Shogun world, so it was dope seeing that. You saw Mako Mori. Did you see Mako Mori there? It was pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
It's cool, man. So, yeah, that's all I got for Westworld. I look forward to its next episode.
I did watch some movies this weekend as well.
Mm-hmm. What did you watch?
I watched a French film called High Tension. It is actually the first NC-17 movie I've ever seen. I don't know why. Deadpool, in comparison, Deadpool kind of seemed more violent.
Yeah, well, you probably got to think about the year that came out, too.
I guess you're right. That was a pretty brutal movie, don't get me wrong. It's pretty super... it was definitely a graphic film. But it was pretty cool. It had a little bit of a twist in there. Newborn was in there by The Muse. I enjoyed that. There was some cool cinema.
Like I said, got to think about the year it came out. That was back when Muse did not suck.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But there were some cool shots and stuff. It was a pretty cool movie. I also caught Darkest Hour, and that one hit me in the feels pretty good. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that movie. And hot off the heels of that movie, I caught Dunkirk back to back. So you catch the political side of the whole the Nazi invasion in Western Europe, and then you catch the Dunkirk beach scene stuff. They were
well, in terms of kind of where they are in points in history, those movies are basically the exact same timeline.
They are. No, that's what I'm saying.
Like they work really well as companion pieces, because it's not like
they were saved by...
We'll say Darkest Hour wasn't literally just like, here's a whole World War II movie in general. Like, no, it's very specifically tied to that Battle of Dunkirk.
Right.
Period of time.
Churchill gains power and saves the people at Dunkirk, and Dunkirk is about the people waiting to get saved at Dunkirk. So it was really fucking cool to watch them back to back. And Dunkirk is a really fucking good movie, dude.
How is it? How does it sound on like a home system?
I didn't. It wasn't as egregious as I thought it was in theaters. Of course, I don't have as many speakers or as big as speakers or as loud as speakers. I do turn my shit up pretty loud, but it wasn't. I don't know. I didn't have a problem with dialogue like I noticed in the other one. It is a loud movie, but it seemed pretty well mixed. I didn't have a problem with it.
I guess that Oscar was well deserved after all.
Yeah, no, it was the audio mixes, or just the audio alone is fucking cool. Sound design is awesome in that movie. And then I watched something else right after that as well. Maybe it was just Westworld. Maybe I caught Westworld after that. I can't remember. No, I watched Drag Me to Hell. That's what I watched.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a little Sam Raimi goodness.
Yeah. It's Evil Dead.
Ish, yeah.
It's it's Evil Dead with a curse. But that was a pretty funny movie. I enjoyed it. I like Evil Dead, so I like Sam Raimi, or I like his shit. So, I think that's everything I've watched in a nutshell so far, past week or so. What about you, man? What have you been up to? I feel like I've gone on and on and on and on.
Well, it's usually me, so one sympathizes. Well, Westworld and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are the obvious ones that we got out of the way, so I won't mention anything about them anymore. But the other two things that I watched this week that I finished up, in both cases, were a couple other HBO series that I talked about, I think, a couple weeks ago. First of which is Barry. So it had its season finale a little while ago. I watched it. Incredible finish to an incredible show, incredible first season of that. Really, really amazing stuff. I encourage anyone that has an HBO subscription, whether it's Go, Now, whatever the case is, watch Barry. 8 episodes, half hour apiece.
dark comedy?
Yeah, it's a dark comedy. Bill Hader plays the lead. He's a hitman that finds himself in an acting class, and he kind of tries to switch career from being a hitman to being an actor. But it's not such a clean switch after all. But it's like the humor in it is great, and just the shift in tone from kind of just being very humorous to being very dark. It switches on a dime, and man, when it gets dark, it fucking gets really dark and like really powerful. But when it's funny as hell, and it lands all its comedic beats as well. So it's great. And Bill Hader should honestly, his performance warrants Emmy consideration, I would argue. Got to be one of the best roles he's ever performed in. Obviously he's a comedic actor, I think, by trade, but he shows a lot more shades than just being a comedic actor here. So well worth your time. So look into that. I finished the 5th season of Silicon Valley as well, also on HBO. It was more of an abbreviated season this time. It was only 8 episodes versus the usual 10. And it ended a little bit differently than most of the other ones. Like the Silicon Valley team always gets shit thrown at them, and then they kind of find their way out of it. And this one was kind of a little bit different. They kind of changed it a little bit, kind of went against type a little bit, against formula to some extent, and it was good. I had a good time with that season finale. Some twists and turns here and there. I think it's going to go one way and then it goes another way, and so it wasn't as predictable as I kind of figured it might be. I think it's a show that's probably nearing the end of its run, but cast is really fun. Like I said, sometimes the jokes in it are just fucking amazing too. So that's another one that that one's a little bit more of an investment of time, given that it's 5 seasons in, but it's a half-hour comedy, so it's not too bad anyway. So if you're looking for comedies to watch, Barry and Silicon Valley would be top of my list for some immediate recommendations, and Arrested Development, of course. But in terms of things that I've watched recently, those are the 2 that come to mind. So that's really it as far as kind of what I've been up to.
I did watch 7 Psychopaths as well.
Fuck the cops. Fuck them.
Fuck them.
No fucking cops.
It's a good movie. I really like that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't seen that one in a good while. But no.
That's all I got, man.
Yeah, that's all I got too. I think we can wrap it up there. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Watch, Review, Repeat. If you enjoyed what you heard, spread the word. Leave us a review on iTunes, Google Play, Facebook, whatever, anything. However you guys listen to us, that would be awesome. Support us on Patreon. Just go to our website, which is www.watchreviewrepeat.com, and just click on the premium tab and scroll down, and you will see a button to become a patron. And in doing so, you get early access to all of our regular episodes. You'll get access to our bonus episodes that we're going to be putting out monthly. Still have an Indiana Jones franchise bonus episode forthcoming. It's coming down to the wire, I realize, for the month of May, but it is in fact coming. We're working on it, and it will be out eventually. So you can support us that way. And that would be awesome. Basically just helps us cover the costs of the show, just to help us cover the operating costs. So it's an option. If you want to kind of pay it back to us, that would be greatly appreciated. If you would like to send any questions, comments, suggestions, maybe your favorite Deadpool jokes, send it to our watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com, or you can tweet it to us at WRRpod. Or, you can comment on our Facebook page, Watch, Review, Repeat. Intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And last but not least, our next episode will be covering
Star Wars!
Yes, that... I wasn't going to be nearly as excited, but he went there, so... expect that level of excitement when we talk about Solo, a Star Wars story next week.
It's not a main storyline thing,
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely more excited for The Last Jedi.
Sure, that's fair.
But it is fucking Star Wars, and it's right there. I'm pretty excited about it.
I like me some Star Wars. I am looking forward to this.
I would not expect a 2-part episode in the same vein as
No,
Celestial
I
on
think
this one,
we
though.
can certainly keep our coverage constrained to a single episode this go around. We got a little overzealous with our Star Wars coverage last time around, but for good reason. I mean, The Last Jedi had there was a lot to unpack there, and I think this one will be a little bit more straightforward. I'm expecting a bit of a romp, a bit of an adventure, a bit of a Solo, a bit of a Lando, and a bit of a Khaleesi, and a bit of Chewbacca, and some Ron Howard, directing things for 80% of it, and then Lord Miller directing the other 20%. Can we figure out which part is which? Who's to say? We'll find out soon. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens, and we will talk about it shortly. So, with that, I will leave it there and look forward to our coverage on Solo: A Star Wars Story. Latest on the Menche.